Everyone that is successful has failed bigger, harder, more publicly than you have. That's the only way it works. You have to put yourself out there a lot, and you have to be able to build a resilience to no's and to people not getting it. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. And it doesn't mean that even if you never make money from it, that you should do it.
Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment, guys. This is one of my favorite places right here at the beginning because I get an opportunity to welcome the guests because I know they're coming with a couple of things I deem very, very expensive. But I've learned that it is. The first is their time. 24 hours has been offered to every man and woman. And Cliff is here to spend some of that precious stuff with us, man, that commodity. And I'm telling you, if you don't respect time, it'll tell me a lot about you because it exposes who you are. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful created him. It gave him some stuff that we want access to. We want to learn so that we can become better while we are occupying some time here on this beautiful planet. What are those things that are deposited in him, man? Wisdom, knowledge, insight, understanding, all of those wonderful things we want access to. And in order for Cliff to allow us access to that, he must become vulnerable. And so we want to honor him, thank him for that, because it takes a lot to do that. So, Cliff, thank you so much, man, and welcome to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you, Ken, for having me. Excited to chat with you today.
It's an honor, man. And I am so excited about our conversation because I had a couple of weeks to listen and have some fun and stuff like that. As I mentioned to you, one of the first questions that I ask people as they present to here is about their servanthood. My question to you, Cliff, is simply this: how do you serve mankind?
That's a great question. I think I operate and serve out of thinking always about legacy, always thinking about what I'm going to leave behind, not just through the content, but through what you did for different people. And so I've been spending a lot of time in this season of my life volunteering to serve youth, to serve what people used to call the next generation, but it's the now generation because they're here. And so there's so many times where you want to be able to give all the great knowledge and gifts to the next generation and the youth because they're still being formed, as we all are. We're still on that journey. But when you're beginning the journey, having so much extra knowledge and extra time and extra value added to you, the tough part is that not all youth will be able to absorb all of that information, just like school. Sometimes you recall information that you thought you'd never use later in life. But the thing is, like, you're just presenting a bunch of different stuff, and not everything is going to stick. You might not even see the benefits of any of that. And there's nothing that they can give to you because they're not in their season of giving, they're in their season of taking. But for me, I like working with that population, especially around opening them up to just creativity and carrying that childlike curiosity through life. Because as a musician, as an artist, as a writer, that is why I do all the things that I do, because I'm curious about the world, and the way that I mirror or reflect that out comes out in the content. So right now I've been serving with the Tony Robbins Foundation. I just came back from Kenya in April, working with a bunch of youth in Africa at the Big Brother program in Los Angeles. Wherever I decide to focus my time, whether it's a church or community group or just one-on-one, I just really focus on remembering that childhood can be very difficult for different households, different people. You go through a lot. Not everything gets expressed, not everything gets said, not everything you have the verbiage to be able to express. And so through the creative arts, through creativity, whether you do it for money or just do it for sanity, it's having that release of emotion, the catharsis that you get, having the outlet. You save people from things like suicide and things like that because they have a way. It connects you and it's communal, but it makes you feel less alone because you realize that we're all on this rock going through similar types of things. Even though no one necessarily walks a mile in your shoes, they can walk a mile with you, and that's what I like to do with the youth.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing, man. Especially the arts, I think. The arts opens one of the most powerful pillars that one needs to visit when you're dealing with tribulations, if you will, going through the hard times. And that is one's imagination. when you are also opens you to a new world. n- Uh, I love that about the art because there's no limitation basically within the arts because you can do whatever you imagine to do. And that's one of the most powerful principles that one has to walk through, especially when you're going through your personal development and having that insight because the kids start to train that part of them at a young age. So by the time that stuff hits them, they have learned principles within that framework and they're able to govern themselves through tremendous amount of dark times and spaces that visit to them. So I love that stuff, man. It's absolutely beautiful. One of our customs here, Cliff, is to go back into our beginnings. And usually, our beginnings, we start in this house after we get out of the hospital. And we have a couple of scientists in their white coats over there that's called mom and dad. And they may have a couple of assistants running around in this lab that is called brothers and sisters and so forth. And then there's you, man, a bunch of strangers, basically. But that first location, Cliff, we're going to learn a couple of things. We're going to learn about our communication skills. Our behaviors are going to start developing there. Our belief is going to start there. Our mindset, if you will, is going to start there. All kinds of fun stuff is going to be there to introduce us to us, for us to now to begin to start perceiving the world and developing on our journey, as they say. What was your family unit like?
Yeah, growing up, I grew up in kind of a non-traditional family. So my first household was my mom, my grandma, my aunts. That was who I grew up with. My dad was not fully integrated into that unit throughout, consistently in childhood. Thankfully, in adulthood, we've had more consistency. But it was great because growing up with so much love, and then even outside of that, I had so many other aunts and church aunts and people who would take me on and mentor me and show me things. So I grew up with a lot of women and multi-generational. So the beauty of that is that I was able to feel a lot of love in a lot of different ways. But more importantly, I was able to be able to, from these older generations, learn a lot of wisdom, a lot of things, not just about cooking and about life, but about relationships, about how you relate to the world. And so it's interesting because sometimes you think you come from a place of lack, if you're missing a parent or something like that, but then also you realize God and the universe has so many ways of feeling these other things that you may not have gotten. So if I had a traditional cookie cutter kind of experience, then I would have been shaped in one way. And because I didn't have that, I was shaped in a completely different way. And the beauty of that is that when I work with all these youth and they come from single moms and other different types of households, sometimes you're raised by grandma, sometimes you're raised by grandpa, sometimes you're raised by an older friend, that kind of thing, is that you know, there's multiple ways of doing things in life, and your life may look completely different from another person, but we can still relate to each other. That it can still there's still a wholeness and oneness, even if something looks on paper like it's less than or has lack. So I never felt or grew up to ever feel like anything was missing. I felt like I
Yeah.
had abundance and more of things because the way that it was explained to me. And it doesn't mean that you don't have different feelings about it. It doesn't mean that you don't miss certain things. But there's a beauty in that. There's a beauty in knowing that when you miss something and it comes back, and when you lose something and you find it, you treasure it. You realize how valuable it is. Sometimes you don't realize that if things are just always there. But I learned definitely from my family the value of work, the value of trying different things, the being okay with not being great at something at first was something that was really instilled in me. But a lot of love, a lot of laughter. I think one of the most important things that I try to bring to the table now is to remind people of laughter. When you see a baby or you see a kid, they just laugh all the time, and it keeps you young. But I think also like laughter is this wonderful currency that when you have it with people, it really is a litmus test for how relationships are going. Because when you're around your family and you enjoy their company and you laugh a lot, that's
Hmm.
a beautiful thing. And we had a lot of that silliness and when I was growing up and everybody coming just to kind of plant these different seeds and water them and dote on me and give me a lot of love. So I was very fortunate, very thankful to be able to have that kind of household experience. I think that came because being the only male in an all-female thing, there was a lot of love coming from that. But I think also I was born very premature, so I think just that mere survival, they really saw the touch and go of how
Yeah.
precious life was. Because there
Yeah.
was a time where they weren't sure if I was gonna make it, how I was gonna make it, and what that was gonna look like. And luckily, everything worked out according to God's plan, and I'm thankful for that. But I think because of that they really cherish the time they have with me from the time period where they thought they might not get that time. So I think that's a nice way to look at it too, where sometimes it's really nice to be able to show people that you love, that you appreciate them, and that you're thankful for that time, because you don't always, that time is finite on this planet and this realm. And so it was great to be able to really feel the the love from so many different people and different walks of and steps of life and vantage points. It really gave me kind of a diverse kind of look at the world.
That is awesome, man. And with all of that foundation love from all of the family members that were around, and grandma, aunts, and mom, everyone that, and other mentors, I'm sure, that God provided around you. How did that form your communication skills with others? How was Cliff as a young man with all surrounded with all of that? How was he showing up, if you will, with his friends outside of the family?
Yeah, I mean, I was always very kind of charismatic and like to win friends. It's funny because I seemed so diligent and so serious, but as a kid, I always had what they call behavior issues, which now people realize that just being a creative person, I would
Yeah.
wander off and do my own thing, and teachers weren't able to control me in that way. I was like, I don't. I was very opinionated, very strong-willed, so with friends, it took me a while to really kind of interact with them because I was raised around so many adults. I was very
Yeah.
adult as a kid.
Yeah.
And I didn't always relate to kids in the same way because they saw my potentials, which is great. They really poured into me. But what happened is that
Mhm.
there was like a huge disparity between me and the other kids because the kids who they just like there were kids who were just starting to learn by the time I came to school, like I knew my address, I knew how to get places, I knew how to walk by myself, I knew my ABCs and 1, 2, 3, and all that stuff. And kids were just getting to those points of being presented information that had been presented for years to me. I remember my mom saying that she would she remembers the shift of when she would read me bedtime stories and then eventually I pulled the book and I said, I'm gonna read to you. That was the kid that I was. And so yeah, it took a while for me to kind of figure out how I would play and interact with kids and find my sweet spot with that. But I always I always wanted to be kind of a leader. I didn't want to follow blindly. I didn't subscribe to group think. Like I really was like, I don't care what anyone's doing. Like I have to do what's right
Yeah.
to me, and so that was, but it was nice because it took me a while. Like I didn't have a lot of friends for, like the elementary, primary school age, but by middle school it got a little easier. By high school it got really easy. So I found my fit. I figured out how to build a tribe, because you have your family and then you have
Mhm.
these friends. And I really love being able to curate the people that I want around me from even that age because I got to choose them. It's like family was
Yeah.
like chosen for me. I got to build on that. And the beauty of that is that I never had to choose like between one and the other. They all had a place in the space for different reasons. And I think people always want to find people that get them. You hope that it's family. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And then you hope it's friends, and sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. And some people get you for a period of time, some people get you for a lifetime. But I cherished every interaction that I had. Like I really enjoyed spending time with people for different things. And I think at that young age, it was cool because, before bills, before college, before stress, I really did a lot of quote unquote nothing, which I think was important at that time because I feel like I feel as an adult so much space as I became more serious with so many things and so many activities that sometimes you don't remember pure enjoyment of
Yeah.
of nothing, of really being with people. And I really love the age that I grew up in where it was like before a lot of digital technology and things where you really had to understand how you interact face to
Hmm.
face. Because
Yeah.
now I meet a lot of people that don't have that, and when you have only that, then you have no choice. I feel like socialization was a different thing, but it was cool because the people who really got me, especially when I gravitated towards music and arts, then we were quote unquote weirdos. But I like being weird, and and it's great to do that. I explain when you have that book about the ugly duckling, it's like your whole life as a creative and a person who's kind of misunderstood is that story where you eventually find this tribe and you're like, "Oh, I'm a swan. I'm not a
Yeah.
duckling. I can't hang with these people, not because they're not cool, but that's just not me." And then it's like when you swim into that pond and everybody's like, vibrating like you. And that was
Yeah.
like what I
That's us.
eventually got to. But it was like a journey. It was like I had that
Yeah.
ugly duckling couple years to eventually figure out, oh, there's a different group, and that group gets it. And this group, they didn't get it for whatever reason, but there's people who will get them. So sometimes you have to be comfortable in life, knowing that like you're gonna interact with different people, and some people are gonna get it, and some people don't. And it's like it's where you're swimming, that allows you
Yeah.
to find that group. But you're not gonna just be sitting around and the group always comes. Sometimes, they kind of breeze by and you kind of see and you join a group, but sometimes you have to
Yeah.
be actively pursuing that. And so that was cool that like as I started to figure out, okay, these are the people I really like click with and how do I find more of them, then that was really when I started to really start to gain a lot of friends and be able to influence people and stuff like that. But it took a while. Like it was like I
Yeah.
had training wheels and it was clunky, but that was great because I had the family. So they were always a fallback. Like I knew they'd be there. And so having that foundation, good days, bad days, I came and talked to them about it. They were like, you'll try again the next day. But then eventually they allowed me, as they loved me, still to kind of like make the steps to figure it out and would answer questions. But then it was like eventually like it took a while. So I just encourage people to like if you haven't found your tribe yet or built it to the level you want or for people that you need to meet, like there's still time, but also like you get to be the curator of your life and the people you surround yourself with. But it might take time.
Absolutely. And you're heading out to, I love that story. I'm going to leave it right there because it's so full and so rich. And all you guys are listening. I hope you got all those nuggets that Cliff was laying out there as far as building relationships and trusting the family and guiding, finding your way, your tribe, as they say. And it takes time and hit and miss, just like anything else, but you'll find your way. Just keep moving, man, and just keep moving and don't take it in internally and none of that stuff. Just let it go and start, and you'll find your tribe. And once you find your tribe, things will be clicking. As you're heading out in your life, Cliff, you're one of the first major crossroads that we face as young adults as we're heading out to quote unquote our independence is this place where we get to and we have to choose college and work and stuff like that. But when you grow up, especially with women like that, I know where you're going. I know exactly where they're going to make you go. So here you are, man. My question to you is this, because you're in the arts, you're in the music, you're all of those things there that are seated and birth in you, and you're looking towards college. Which college did you pick, and why did you pick the field of study in that college?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. So I was at this crossroads. I come from a very religious family, and I should say that God, at least to me, is a friend as well in that friends curation and family. What I think happened is that I was on two roads. I excelled eventually in school really well, passed the behavior issues, and became really great at school. And then through that process, I was thinking that I was going to become a doctor, that I was going to do pre-med. That was the goal. So I applied to a bunch of schools, but I knew there was a part of me that really wanted to do music. And so my last school that I applied to was Berklee College of Music in Boston, which was one of the top music schools in the States. And so and a lot of people, they don't get in. So that was like my kind of reach school since I had done music, taking piano lessons and doing choirs and stuff in school and in church, but small town kind of things. And so it was the last school that I got accepted to. When I got accepted conditionally, that I had to take some kind of summer courses to kind of boot camp myself to be prepared to start from the very bottom. And it
Yeah.
was cool because yeah, I was the first person in my immediate family to go to college. And my family was okay with me picking a path as they were like, as long as you go somewhere. But there was never like a, you're not gonna go. You're definitely gonna go.
Yeah.
And it was expensive, so I appreciate the value that they gave to me. But they really wanted me to be happy. And I think I realized that being a doctor was never my dream. It was just something that
Yeah.
people thought was good to do. And it was really an aunt that kind of had that dream, and she studied science and chemistry. She eventually became a chemist, but one of the aunts that I grew up with. And so, like, she was the first in that circle to go to college. So I was really kind of seeing what she did and following those footsteps. But it was great because I really learned. And actually, I ended up going to Berkeley because I had a friend who was amazing in high school and had wrote these great orchestra symphonies. And we both were in this contest, and he won for his thing. I did not place nationally, but we were all in New York to see that. And he was like, "This is a great school. I'm going to go there. You should go." And I love that. I love the I've always had someone in my path that kind of like I was able to just, he was a year older than me, so I was able to look at
Yeah.
someone and say, okay. And it was great because he came for the first year, and then we became roommates, and then he left, and I stayed. But I feel I might not have been as comfortable to make the leap from
Yeah.
DC to Boston without kind of the training wheels. And then I had this older cousin that kind of watched over me like a mom, that I didn't know in Boston.
Yeah.
And so that gave me a lot of courage to be able to do that because I left home at 16. And so
Yeah.
I was still pretty young, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
graduated actually my bachelor's at 19. But what that allowed me to do is again that sent me to a school where they dropped me off and they were like, this is your tribe. These are the weirdos. They're like you, which I didn't mind. Like that when people say that you're weird, that's actually a badge of honor for a musician because you need more weirdos. The people that
Yeah.
you remember are the ones that stand out. People that play it safe, they don't nothing against that, but they don't remember that as much. They
Yeah.
don't make statues to that kind of thing. So it was cool because when you go to a place where there's so much music around. Every time you walk through the hall of practice room, you're hearing jazz, you're hearing R&B, you're hearing Latin, you're hearing soul, you're hearing rap, you're hearing everything. And you're going to the studios and everybody's recording different things and you're trying different things. And it was just like to be, uh, the Bible says iron sharpens iron. Like I started from
Hmm.
the bottom, but I rose eventually in 3 years to do the top showcase. And in the beginning, nobody even like recognized that I really had much talent, but I
Yeah.
knew that I could hustle. I knew that I could learn. I was in the what they now call media center, but the library. I watched every DVD, Laserdisc, VHS, cassette tape, Betamax,
Yeah.
everything, because I wanted to learn as much as I could about the history of music, the craft of music. I studied how they walked, how they talked, how they sang, how they interacted with the audience. And so I just was this huge sponge, and I still am. Whether it's YouTube or anything else, podcast, I like to learn as much as I can, as deep. I like to go into every artist that I love and go back to who were their influences and their influences and their influences as far back as music can go, because that gives you just this breadth and depth because music is a lifelong thing. You never hear a musician that's really good ever say they're done. You continue to death because you love it so much, but also because every time even if you view the same piece of music, you'll see artists that did it like a Tony Bennett. You see a 60-year span of him doing the same song, Fascinating Rhythm. By the time he does it again with Lady Gaga, in like his 90s, it's totally different from how it was in his 20s. And that's the beauty of that is that it grows with you, it adapts with you, it evolves with you as you evolve. And sometimes you sound really fresh as a kid, you sound really weathered as an adult. But I love that. I love that sandpaper seasoning that you get of a person. There are some songs, some ideas that come across. Like when you look at a Johnny Cash when he covered Nine Inch Nails, Hurt, the way
Hmm.
he did that as an older
Yeah.
person after his wife has been sick and died and he's blind and dying, giving his squeezing the last of himself, the greatest part of himself out, it takes a totally
Great
different
song.
meaning of
Great,
that
great sing. Yeah.
song that even
Rendition.
the
Yeah.
writer at the time didn't know that's what it could be. But that's the beauty of it is that it can be interpreted by people and it takes where you are on that journey in that path to show it in that way. So yeah, I've been very
Yeah.
fortunate to be able to pick that school in particular. I don't think I couldn't have seen myself at a Juilliard or anywhere else. So it's like just because everyone can be on par and caliber, that was the right place for me at the right time. And
Great
I think
location.
everyone should be able to pick it. Yeah. Oh, it's a college town
Great
for sure.
location. Awesome. I have some friends that were from there as well. I'm a musician, I'm a bass player, so I know some of the
Oh, very
boys who
cool.
went out there. So here you are, man. You had an opportunity to, you know, mingle with some of the greats because I know some of those boys that are in that school, and they come and they have all kinds of workshops and stuff like that that come from time to time. And you mentioned that you're a student of music, and that is always, and you guys are listening to me. Become a student, become a disciple. That's what Cliff is talking about. And he became a disciple with music. And disciple is those individuals that discipline themselves within that particular arena where you're called to be. And when you discipline yourself, you become deep, basically, because you are familiar with all different types, like he talked about all the different types of music. One of the things that always broke my heart, Cliff, is when I saw a musician or a group of musician or a single musician or whatever, and they are singing songs and whatever, and the public pigeonholes them and keeps them in this little box. And that always frustrates me because that shows how ignorant the public can be sometimes because that and those musicians are growing and the music that they did when they were younger was the music that they did when they were younger. And the music that they want to do and is now seeping out of them does not look anything like the music that they did when they were young, but yet the audience is demanding that they stay young. And that's one of the sins, I think. And that kind of forces musicians, a lot of them just give up and just get out of that thing and, from that place because it's just unreasonable because they need to expand. And so here you are, man. You're studying and you're expanding, if you will, your understanding of music as you're moving through life, Cliff, and you are, because I want to head out towards the book. How did that coming, life happens, I tell people as we are doing this stuff. And I know you went to one of those famous places, I'm not going to tell, I'm going to let you tell the TV stuff. And it didn't work out, if you will. I wanted you to talk about that because expectation and loss of expectation, one goes up and then you have to come down and then you have to deal with that internally. You know, what did it do to you as to when you got there, you did your performance and so forth, and you had to deal with the aftermath of not making it? How did you handle that? Because those are the times when we are being made, if you will. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, yeah. So after Berkeley moved sight unseen from Boston to Los Angeles, and I've lived in Los Angeles now over 20 years. And I know, like, you think of New York, New York. It's like if you make it here, you make it anywhere. That's really how LA is. And so at the time, this was the early 2000s, American Idol was just coming up. And so I thought that was going to be my hot golden ticket, like Willy
Yeah.
Wonka, to get out of everywhere. And so I went through a few rounds of that and it was amazing. And so you start to go and meet producers and people are talking you up and you're meeting cool people. Yeah, I finally got in front of the judges on TV and did my thing. I think I was doing Stevie Wonder at the time. You know, one of the judges liked it, two of them didn't, and so that 2-to-1 balance, I was out. I was in the in crowd and in the lights, and then one day I was just like out back on the streets.
Yeah.
And, it was cool because well, at the time, it was a gut punch and a gut check, like, it felt so bad to be so vulnerable, as you had said, and to have these people stand in judgment of you that may not see your vision, but, in terms of the book, what ended up happening is that I learned just like when I said I didn't actually have the dream of being a doctor, that was my aunt's dream. I didn't have the dream of being on TV and winning American Idol. I just wanted a vehicle to get my music out there. And
Yeah.
nothing was keeping me from doing that because who said? Like, just because they said no, they weren't the only people. They were just 3 out of 7 billion. So it is humbling. But I think the beauty of it for me is that if someone says no and you say that's it, then you have to ask yourself, did I really want it that bad? Because it's something you have to want really bad. You have to
Really
want it
bad.
as hard as you want to breathe to be able to stick with it. Everybody who does it, because I can tell you, people I went to Berkeley with, I would say about 95% of them have quit music altogether because it's tough. It's a tough industry, tough business. I think when you were talking about the audience and shift, it's partially the audience for sure. It's part, but it's really the business. It's the
Yep.
business
Hmm.
controlling the audience that wants to
Yeah.
dictate what an artist could do. And that's even artists at the highest caliber, a Prince or a
Oh, yeah.
Michael Jackson. There's still someone dictating like, no, that's not gonna work. We need you to be in this box. This is the box that we have deemed appropriate. Which is very sad because they do have a lot of like things that they never got out, like demos and things they worked on that are amazing, but the audience wasn't there or they weren't allowed to be able to do that. But then you have other artists like a Pink or a Bruno Mars. You see they did what they needed to get over, Lady Gaga, and then you see what they really became themselves. So I've been always on that trajectory afterwards. So it was like I started a band almost immediately after American Idol because I was like, F you, I'm gonna do this. And so I did that for a couple years, and then that band kind of disbanded until I was like, okay, let me go and learn more about the business. And I was gonna really not really pursue music. And then I met some friends who were like, hey, you have some cool songs, let's play them. And then they were like, let's have this party. So we had this party. And then from there, this was like the early 2010s, they were like, you should pursue this and do this again. So I started doing music under my own name, and I've been ever since doing that. And then by 2013, we were like, hey, we need to make kind of a record. And that was the first record we did, which was Who the Funk is Cliff Beach. And that was
Yeah.
supposed to be answering that question, like, who are you? Who are you as an artist? That was the question that a producer asked me. He was like, you can sing, you can play, you can write, but who are you? Who do you want the world to know you are? And so that was the exploration. And what I did, what I thought was the most amazing thing at the time, I said, I want to make 10 albums in 10 years. And at the time in 2013, I didn't know how to make the one, let alone 10. But
Yeah.
I knew that if I set this huge goal, I
Hmm.
knew that anxiety or anything else would kick up in me, like I would get it done. And I did from 2013 to 2022. There were 10 different projects. Some were on the plan, some were added later, some come up that I had never even thought about at the time. But I knew I was like, I'm putting this number 10 on this paper and we're gonna start as we see the light and the staircase and make the steps. I'm gonna keep adding to it. And so some were long albums, some were short, some were like, just a 45 of one or two songs, but all the projects got done and plotted and we kept doing after that. We didn't stop at 10. And
Yeah.
and the beauty of that is that I learned how to be a better producer, how to be a writer, how to set up business entities. And I would not have done that. See, when I was studying music 20 years ago, I thought, let me be a great singer. Then I was like, well, let me also play piano. Then let me also have this way of writing songs. Let me start producing. Let me build a band. So it wasn't like I did it all at once. It's just like the Wizard of Oz. It's like, she doesn't get to everybody in the first moment of the movie. She's got to get to the Scarecrow, then the Tin Man, then the Cowardly Lion. It's like she built the tribe as she
Yeah.
went through the steps. And she didn't know what was actually at the end. And when she got to the end, it wasn't what she thought. And then she realized she had inside her the thing the whole time. The home base. She had the shoes on from the beginning, but she didn't know what they were. She wasn't aware. So it's like I like that allegory because it allows you to know that you do not have to see the whole thing. Actually, it's not as cool. It's not as hip to be if you could predict the future like that and have a crystal ball, it would be no point to do it. The whole point
Yeah.
is that the journey is not the destination, but it is good to be pointing somewhere. You have to plug something in the GPS to start moving towards something because otherwise, if you don't have a goal, you just have a dream. And
Yeah.
dreams or ideas that don't have execution and follow through, then they just become they don't become. Like they you start but you don't finish. And so the book was really kind of cataloging then when I figured out, oh, that's how you actually put a project together. And also I work outside of music to sustain myself as heading a digital marketing company. And so it talked about how I did that, how I built this foundation and ecosystem where it was like I can do what I want. I don't have to wait for anybody to green light. I don't have to sit in front of judges to say, you get the ticket. It's like, no, I will
Yeah.
buy my own ticket. And I was so happy to be able to do that because I don't want to be beholden to people. I've never
Yeah.
crowdfunded because I was like, I don't want to owe people anything. Like I want to give you what I want to give you, but other stuff like Luther Vandross says, I don't owe you that. I don't owe you that. So I didn't want to be beholden in that way. And I think there's a lot of people, you know, you talked about Jay-Z, I think at one point. Jay-Z, that's what he did. Nobody wanted him. I make my own record label. Now he's a billionaire. That's how you do it. You know, Missy
Yeah.
Elliott, she came out, they're like, oh, she's too this, she's too that. They don't want it. But I want me. And America wants me, even if you don't. And that's what I didn't get, is that these people, it's very subjective. Very easy to be dismissive. And all those people judging, most of them, they didn't do, you know, they didn't actually make the record. They weren't the
Yep.
artists. They're just people
Yeah.
who stand in judgment. So it's like, I take it with a grain of salt, but it was great because I think it separates, just like Berkeley had a great way in the first year of separating out people who weren't serious and they would just get
Hmm.
booted out. The world has a way of booting out people who aren't serious, who don't want it enough. And so that is not an easy path, but the resilience. The book is all about resilience, the muscle that you gain, the strength that you gain from going through all the things, the trauma, the no's. Those so many no's, so many dead ends, so many delays, so many dilemmas. All those bad D words come up before deliverance, before actually getting the product out there. And only the people who are not faint of heart will get to the
Yeah.
end.
And your second book, Cliff, what's the content of this one? Because now the first one, you talked about all of that, you know, showing your resilience in the industry, the fact that, and I hope you young folks are listening to Cliff, you got to put some meat on that dream that you have. You have to put some data, go and look, search for stuff. And without you putting a plan to that dream, it's simply a dream that's going to die and just drift away. So find your way, start getting serious about it. And life has a way to, you know, to test you to see if you're serious about what you're saying. So don't worry about it. You know, you'll be tested. You don't think you're going to get away with anything. All kinds of stuff is going to come your way. And you're going to have, I used to say to my kids, I need, until you find that thing that you will look at me and say, Dad, I don't give a damn what you think. I'm going to do it. You haven't found it yet. And I said, when you get there, I'll know, you'll know, and I'll know because you'll tell me, I don't give a damn what you say. This is what I'm going to do. And I said, I'm waiting for that. I used to tell, I'm waiting for that day because then I know you're on the right path. Talk to us about the second book. What was that? How did that, Cliff, in your life and at the stage as what you were doing in your life, how did that second piece come together? And what did it basically is between those wonderful walls that we call, you know, the the book? You know, what's inside that book that that is housed your wisdom from resilience to today.
Yeah, so basically the first book was all about hustle culture and getting your dreams and ideas out there. And what I realized by the second book on my journey is that I had a lot of health issues. And so what happened is that sometimes you're hustling so hard for the thing that you lose sight of the most important thing, which is you know, this body
Yeah.
that houses you, this temple that houses you. And so health ended up for me being the ball you drop, the thing you get back to later. And so finally it was it was whispering, whispering, getting louder. Eventually, it started screaming. And so when I actually decided to do something about it, the whole Shape Up second book is a continuation of like you can do everything from the first book, but how much more could you do with a healthier mind, with a healthier body, with a healthier outlook? And it was just like, whenever you're on an airplane, they say, hey, if anything happens, you have to put a mask on first. Then you help your kids, which seems counterintuitive. But the thing is, like, if you become incapacitated, you become a liability, not an asset to your kids and the people around you. Now we have to carry you
Mhm.
out of there. And health is the same way. So it's like if you're going to drop all the balls, if you're going to drop a ball between health and work, you drop work because work you always find again. But health, you can't always walk back. And so that was my journey of learning. Most musicians, I wouldn't call every musician a healthy person, in all the aspects. You're up late, you eat late, a lot of addiction, a lot of that stuff. And so it's not about judgment. It's just about making better conscious decisions and realizing that health, which typically is a ball that gets dropped early on, should be the one you cling to the end, because it's going to be the foundation. But see, when you say the word foundation, what I've learned now is because foundations aren't seen, people ignore them. When you walk into a house or a beautiful structure, no one says this is a great foundation. But without it, nothing
Yeah.
works. And that's what health is. Health is the foundation that everything built on top of it will be much stronger. So if you
Yeah.
let health and the foundation slip, then eventually those other things, no matter how much you want to get them, you'll be working like 10 times harder to try to get the thing that could have been very easy if you had health. And so that's why I say you can do all the things from the first book without it, but with it, it's exponential, the multiplier effect because of health.
Yeah, the thing about nature, I tell people, nature is one of the best teachers out there. And God knew we were so, hard-headed, and so he had to put it out big so we could see it. When you look at a tree is growing in two directions. It's growing up and down. And especially those big trees, they're going way down, way before they even pop up. And so a lot of people don't understand that greatness comes in how deep is your foundation. Because when all the other stuff that starts to happen, if you don't have a good foundation, as you see those things with performers and actors and all that stuff, if they don't have a good foundation, you see them burn out in a couple of years. They'll do all kinds of crazy stuff because that foundation is not there. They didn't work on it. Especially these ball players, they get X amount of millions of dollars, like, overnight. And then the next thing you know, they're blowing it, they're partying, they're wasting their money and all this kind of stuff, and they're homeless because they had no foundation. And so you guys you got to listen to Cliff, man. All you young kids, especially you young kids, you musicians and stuff like that. There's a lot of people burning out and dying in music. There's a cost to that. There's a cost to your health, your body, your mind, your soul, your spirit, everything. And you have to learn how to count that cost and learn what's important. How do you want to live? How do you want to show up with your music? If your health is bad, then your music will suffer. You're just not, you're not going to perform to the best of your ability. So here you are today. You're an author, musician. You've gone through so much, assisting, you're serving the community, global community, if you will, coming from different countries and so forth. You have a mic in your hand, Cliff, being a musician, you got a mic, and it is plugged into every young kid on this planet, every one of them. What will you say to them, Cliff?
I'd say, do you. No one can ever say that you did you wrong. So just listen to that inner voice inside you, trust it, cultivate it, and build on that. But the important thing is that we're all here for a purpose. Not everybody knows what their purpose is, but it's up to you to pursue and to figure that out and to ask the questions to be able to do that. Asking questions is super important to be able to figure out your purpose. In Japan, they have this theory of people who live the longest in life, the most octogenarians, over 100, and it's called Ikigai. And you ask these four questions. What am I good at? What does the world need from me? What can I make money from? What do I love to do? And I love the society of Japan. When you look at someone like a Marie Kondo, she was the first person I ever heard that said, when cleaning up, she said, pick it up, touch it, say, does that spark joy? You need to find the things that spark joy in you, because you're not going to get up to go to work that is unfulfilling. You're not going to be able to get up for extrinsic motivation because it's about money. Because we already know, like, there's a very low threshold. You get to X amount of dollars, you don't get any happier after that. It actually becomes worse. And so it's like, do all the things. Try and figure out what sticks. If you don't love it, try something else. But those are all questions. It's science. You have to have a hypothesis. You have to run the experiment, then you have to look back at the data and reflect and see if it was good or not and what you want to do. And the person who does the most things, the person who tries the most and fails forward and fails fast is going to be the person that succeeds. Everyone that is successful has failed bigger, harder, more publicly than you have. That's the only way that it works. You have to put yourself out there a lot, and you have to be able to build a resilience to no's and to people not getting it. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. And it doesn't mean that even if you never make money from it, that you should do it. You look at someone like a Van Gogh, who's now revered around the world as a premier artist, never sold paintings in his lifetime because people didn't get it. He was so forward thinking. You have someone like a Da Vinci. He had thoughts about making an airplane hundreds of years before the Wright brothers. That's what creativity allows you to do. It allows you to open up this channel where the secrets and the mysteries of the universe come to you. But they're not going to come where they're not wanted. Money or creativity does not come where it's not invited. It's like a vampire. So if you don't invite it in and you do things that are blocking and closing you off, then that channel is not going to come. So you just have to remain open, remain honest, remain authentic, be you, and listen to yourself and please yourself because sometimes the world may not agree, but you get to you get to die empty and die happy by doing that. You don't want to have regret. You don't want to leave these things unfinished or never done because you were afraid. So don't let fear um, or not knowing what to do or how to do it stop you because there's always someone out there. There's a Ken, there's a Cliff, there's someone who's been there who can guide you, who can tell you, who can mentor you, and it's your job to seek them out. And if you seek out enough people, they will give you information because in different chapters of your life, you're at a point where all you want to do is disseminate all those key learnings back out into the world, knowing that you don't want to have all those nuggets with you when you die because they will no longer be useful to you. They're useful until this point in this life, and you pass that to the next generation.
Find your passion and be passionate about it, guys. That's what he's talking about. And we're going to provide all of Cliff's links. I want to encourage you guys, get the books. You young kids that are thinking about music and wanting some insights into the arts and all of that mindset. There's a young man that has been there, understands some stuff that you guys are not aware of. Get the books. I always tell you guys at this site, make sure when you're doing that, get about 5 or 6 of you guys. You buy your own books and you read your chapters. Then you meet and have a couple at somebody's house, bring some food over, and discuss that chapter. How did what does that mean to you? And all of you guys chatting and talking. I'm telling you, you're gonna dig and pull stuff deeper that even Cliff didn't even think about. And if you guys have answers and stuff like that, we're going to put stuff together. Is all of his links so you can get in touch with any of us. Get in touch with me, get in touch with Cliff. You guys need any guidance? That's what we're here for, to make sure that you do not get used up, if you will, by people or by industries and so forth. So take his books, get it, spread it around, buy it for gift for kids, everyone. Just get involved with his books and so forth. Cliff, thank you so much for coming, man, and allowing us access to you. Because I know you and I we had to switch around a couple of times, and this is perfect because I know your energy and your wisdom. Someone made a demand for you, and that's why you're here. And so I want to thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much, Ken, and keep up the great work that you're doing. Every time you talk to someone, you learn and you amplify that message out for other people to learn. And that's what it's about.
Thank you so much, man. Cliff, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully, you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, And of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.